Postafazul. She's around, she's a firm, she's a fully packed, she's around like my head. She's flat like your head.
Hello from the East Coast to the West Coast and to listeners around the world. Welcome to the Truth Seekers Radio Show. I'm your host, Angeline Marie. Thanks for taking the time to join us today. We're broadcasting on Liberty Works Radio Network at libertyworksradionetwork.com and their affiliate stations. Also, don't forget, you can always learn more about our program and find podcasts posted at truthseekersradioshow.com. Today we are going to discuss a very controversial topic, one that even many alternative talk radio hosts won't touch because it's so controversial. This is a conspiracy theory that has really taken hold in 2015. I first heard about it last summer, and I decided that if I'm going to call this program the Truth Seekers Radio Show, then I can't ignore this topic. It's like ignoring the big white elephant in the room. Today, my guest is Mark Sargent. He is the host of a radio program called Strange World that broadcasts on the Truth Frequency Radio Network. Mark started his career playing video games professionally in Boulder, Colorado. From there, he spent the next 20 years training people in proprietary software. In 2014, he started to look into what is no doubt the most ridiculous conspiracy ever, called the Flat Earth Theory. But as he set out to debunk it, what he found instead through extensive research wasn't so laughable after all. In early 2015, he released a series of YouTube videos titled Flat Earth Clues, which delves into the possibility of our human civilization actually being inside a Truman Show-like enclosed system. So today, Mark is here to tell us about his research findings about the Flat Earth Theory. So if you'll help me welcome Mark Sargent. How are you doing today, Mark?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me today. I thought first, let me just start off by telling everybody how I found out about you. I'm a talk radio junkie, and I was listening to the radio one night. All of a sudden, I heard these two guys laughing and talking about a guy named Mark Sargent. And they were talking about something called the Flat Earth Theory. And I got to admit, when I first heard this, I said, you've got to be kidding me. Now, I didn't hear the rest of the program that evening, but a few weeks later, I heard a program by Rob Skiba on the Flat Earth Theory. And he was telling his story about how he had set out to debunk it. And the more he got into it, the more he found things weren't as silly as he thought. But what really attracted me to his findings were the ones that he aligned with biblical scripture. So he got my attention, and it really started to make me think. And then a few weeks later, I stumbled onto your work again, and so that brings us to today. So I just wanted to let you know how I found you. So Mark, let's start at the beginning. How did you get involved in the Flat Earth Theory?
I got into it because I was a big conspiracy guy for 20 years, going all the way back to, when JFK was first aired in the theaters. And I thought I'd pretty much seen it all. I thought I'd looked at pretty much everything. And then out of boredom, I happened to run into a video on YouTube that was talking about how the flights are wrong in the southern hemisphere, meaning they don't make sense on a globe model. They only make sense in a flat model. And it was done by this German guy, and I thought, that's pretty interesting. So then I, stumbled upon, like a lot of people, the Matt Boylan story, where he supposedly, when he was 25 or so, was working for NASA as a painter, And they told him at a party one time that the Earth wasn't what you thought it was, that it was actually flat. And I, like everybody, again, anyone who's listened to this, if you don't resist this thing right away, if you don't brace against it, then there's probably something wrong with you. Because everybody, and which is part of the problem, we're so conditioned. But basically what I tried to do was I tried to, to debunk Matt's story and say, okay, well, I should be able to shoot this thing down in 2 seconds. And that was last summer. And by the time 9 months later in February, I realized that I was in trouble. So I made the series of clues, and I basically put the question out to the internet in so many words. I made a series of, I think, 12, an intro and now 12 clues. But I put the question out to the internet, which basically said, how do you know right now? How does the person that's listening to this right now know you're on a globe? Is it because you remember, a globe sitting in your first grade classroom and that it was always there with you in school? Or because you saw the picture given to you by NASA? And I put that out there and really thought it was going to be shot down. And I thought I had mistakes, and there was a glaring error in there somewhere. And here we are, about to wrap up 2015, and no one's shot it down yet. It just keeps growing and growing and resonating, and from all different groups and religions. It's amazing.
Now, in your research, when did the globe model even come into existence? I mean, when did they start teaching it in schools and whatnot?
Well, it depends where you look. Roughly, it was about 500 years ago. So the first 4,500 years of our civilization, if our civilization is, say, like 5,000 years old, first 4,500 of it, people believed, like, all your major religions, Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, they all believed in the flat model, that not only was it flat, but it was enclosed. There was this big canopy. It was stretched over by a tent. And then the problem there, though, was that even though the maths, so someone came out and said, oh, yeah, by the way, with some special math, we think it's a globe. The problem was you could never actually prove it. You could be 99% sure because of the math that your numbers were right, but there was no way to prove it until you could actually build a vehicle that could go up high enough to actually take the picture. Hot air balloons didn't come along until, with people in them, until like 1760. The first airplanes around 1900. And it wasn't until 1957 that the United States and the and the Soviet Union made, vehicles, rockets that could go up high enough. And so the question was, and again, it was one of the things I touched on, if they got up there and realized the world wasn't what they were advertising for the last 500 years, would they tell people? And the answer I quickly came to was no, they would not.
What I noticed in Clue 5, it was when you were talking about the major religions and how they believed in flat Earth, but there was a change coming in society when the globe model was introduced, and if they didn't get on board, they felt like they might lose their followers. And I thought that was interesting. And then, can you talk about both? I believe you and Rob Skiba have talked about how all the major religions taught about the firmament. Can you tell us what that is?
Sure. In Genesis, as a matter of fact, Genesis, I think, is 1:6 or 1:7. I've got to get that right because it's embarrassing that I don't know it by heart by now. They talk about the firmament, a barrier that separates the waters above and the waters below when the Creator, the Divine, was building this place. And every religion had their own version of that. There's a lot of similarities between Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, and so they pretty much shared some of those stories. But it was true. They all thought of it. So even tribal leaders, people out in the backwoods of Australia, and Native Americans, they all thought this because it just seemed, whatever it was instinctual and it made sense to them. So when science came along and decided to change that, unfortunately, it was a cool enough idea. I mean, the globe model is really slick little advertising campaign that they had to go along with it because otherwise they didn't, they felt that they would just be, forgotten in history. So the churches, but they never forgot it. They never let it, it's always been in their back pocket. So again, which is why I talked about in the clues, if this thing actually comes out, or when it comes out, religion is going to have a lot to say to science.
Now, I think it was in clue number 2 you talk about Admiral Byrd and how he plays into this. Can you tell us a little bit about him?
Sure. Admiral Richard Byrd, United States Navy, probably the finest explorer in modern day times. Youngest admiral, he made rear admiral at I believe it was 41, which is amazing. He was known for his exploring ability, and in fact, I just stumbled across him because I was a big Hollow Earth guy, and I knew that he had flown a rickety plane up to the North Pole in 1926, and we hear the Hollow Earth legend, that comes from there. But what most people don't know is that he spent, or was ordered by whatever power is out there. He was ordered from 1928 until his death, and really in 1957, to just keep hammering Antarctica, the South Pole, and he was looking for something. No question. He was looking for the better part of 30 years. And when he was down there doing that, it was interesting because the footage is great. We were so lucky to get it, which was during these missions down there. In 1954, he comes on national television and says that Antarctica is made out of money, and that there's coal, there's oil, there's minerals, uranium, everything you could ever want, and all these countries that were down there were going to be potentially even fighting over it. And that he was getting ready for his next mission, which was in 1956, called Operation Deep Freeze. And he goes down there, and then everything changed. He found something. Whatever he found, though, scared him and the Russians so badly. Even though there were other countries down there, I think it was really only the Americans and the Russians that were privy to the first wave of it. Whatever he found on there changed everything. Meaning, all these countries that were supposed to make money, they all left. Like they were on fire. They left the ice. They started working on what's now known as the Antarctic Treaty, which was finished in 1959, that basically says no corporation from any country in the world can go to Antarctica and set up shop, ever. And that, for me, that was the big tipping point, because there's no way. We all know capitalism and greed and power and money rule the world. So what conspiracy is bigger than money? This thing was so big they couldn't even come up with a cover story for it. They were willing to shut out all the corporations because they didn't want a helicopter or a plane accidentally going near to wherever this was, which I'm pretty sure was either the soft barrier or the hard barrier of this stage that we're on.
Okay, Mark, let's go ahead and take our first break. Listeners, today my guest is Mark Sargent, host of the Strange World radio program and producer of YouTube videos titled Flat Earth Clues. We're discussing his findings on a conspiracy that has gained much attention this year called the Flat Earth Theory, and we'll be back momentarily on the Truth Seekers radio show.
This alert just came in. This special announcement is for business owners and leaders of organizations who've been waiting for the right time to build. General Steel has made it impossible to wait any longer with rock-bottom prices that could save you thousands. That's right, General Steel, America's leader in pre-engineered structures, is offering buildings at prices you will never see again. Don't miss these prices. A 50 by 100 for $35,000. You heard right. That's 5,000 square feet for $35,000. Manufacturers, if you need a larger building, try a 100 by 100 commercial building for $129,000. You can't afford to rent with these prices. Imagine a 70 by 100 foot church building for under $69,000. With the economy improving and interest rates still at historic lows, you can't afford to wait. So call
800-965-1291. 800-965-1291. 800-965-1291.
You can control your health care with Liberty Health Share.
Liberty Health Share is an alternative to expensive health insurance.
You can finally make the right decisions for you and your family.
It's not insurance, it's medical cost sharing.
You can affordably control the cost of your medical expenses.
It's a group of individuals effectively sharing the cost of health care and paying far less for it.
You don't even have to pay for procedures that are unnecessary or that violate your conscience.
This is based on shared values.
You are not alone.
With Liberty Health Share, you're part of something bigger. a group of people who care for and support one another.
Join the movement of people who share in medical costs and change the way you pay for your health care forever.
It's simple and easy. Call 1-800-714-6993 right now for more information. Or visit libertyoncall.com. Get a free estimate today.
Liberty Health Share. There is an answer.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Truth Seekers radio show. Today, my guest is Mark Sargent, host of the Strange World radio program and producer of YouTube videos titled Flat Earth Clues. And today we're discussing his findings on a conspiracy that has really gained a lot of traction in 2015 called the Flat Earth Theory. So, Mark, we need to address some of the obvious questions. The one I get the most, because I've talked to people that I meet in my life, is, well, why would they lie to us? I mean, what are they hiding?
Sure. Well, think of it this way, and I get those emails every once in a while as well. It's like, well, I still got to go to my crummy job in the morning, so why would I care, if the Earth's round or flat? It's like, well, you may not, but a lot of other people will, and there's really 3 side effects that happen because of this. The first is from an academic standpoint. Imagine if you wake up one morning and there's a headline that says the world is actually enclosed and it's flat. Every college in every university in the world with an astrophysics or an astronomy department, they close overnight. NASA, every space agency closes. And the remaining physical sciences, geology, hydrology, geography, archaeology, even biology, take your pick. They all have to be retooled for this new model. And that you're talking about a lot of academics, a lot of textbooks, which, from grade school all the way up through your master's and your PhDs. These guys are, there have to be a lot of looking into for this. The second thing would be the religious aspect of it. You got to remember that the big 5 religions, which I mentioned earlier, they've all been looking for their Holy Grail, their Ark of the Covenant, and they, basically proof of the divine, or basically intelligent design in this case. So if all of a sudden you give them all these religions that at the same time, well, there's going to be a reckoning, even though, religions will all try to be nice. We seem to be more evolved a little bit in some cases, but there would be a reckoning against science, in which case, the religion would go to science and say, look, you were wrong about this and we were right. So what else are you wrong about and what else are we right about? Which would be amazing. And then the third part, which I think is really the most important part, is that it gives people a new perspective. So if there is proof of intelligent design, and I'm not saying it's necessarily the handprint of God on the wall, but if you now know you're in some sort of enclosed structure, and someone's been looking over your shoulder this entire time, do you keep doing what you've been doing up until now? Do you keep, are you still going to go to war? Are you going, are you going to kill? Are you going to lie, cheat, steal? Are you going to do anything malicious against anybody? And I use the stoplight camera as an example, and I think it fits, which is we all run, stoplights every once in a while, but as soon as they hook up a camera to it, we don't. And you say, well, why not? Well, it's because I'll get caught if I get tried with it. Why were you thinking about running it in the first place? So I think it helps us become better people. So there you go.
I think, too, if you look at it from a spiritual perspective, you talk in one of your clues about hiding God. And this would break the Big Bang Theory, the evolution, and all that. And I think that's truly what's at the bottom of this. Whether the guys, that were in charge, whether they knew or not why they were doing it, I think it all comes down to a spiritual component here. And I think that's the whole thing, was hiding God, the Creator. Yeah. That's just my view of it. And it was the perfect hoax.
Indeed. The greatest con of all time.
Yeah. Has it changed your view of the world at all, as far as God or?
Oh yeah. Spirituality wise, it's going to be tough to be an atheist. in any capacity when this thing comes out, because it's, well, you can't deny it. At that point, it's like, okay, we're in a structure. So somebody built it, which means you have a creator, and if there is a creator, that means that somebody, is looking over you or for you or what, who knows? They may just be, an absentee landlord. You don't know. But yeah, for me, it absolutely changed my look on things. I mean, I won't do anything malicious to anyone ever again because of this, and so I'm just trying to get the word out as fast as possible.
And I've watched a lot of the programs with you and Patricia Steer, and she's talked about this too. I mean, I don't know where she is, quote unquote, in the religious camp, but I know she said she was more towards being atheist, but then this whole thing kind of changed her view. And I don't know exactly where she stands, but the point is that it really does change you in your view of the world. Oh, yeah. And from a spiritual perspective, I think. And I think, so when people say, well, why should we care? I think that's the answer right there.
Yeah.
It can literally change someone's life.
Agreed.
So some of the other questions, like, what about the curvature of the Earth? What do you say to that?
The curvature is an interesting question, because initially when I built the clues, I didn't even address it. In fact, I don't have a single clue that talks about the curvature. And a lot of the pure flat earthers, the purists, they were saying, look, there may be no curvature at all. And so, I looked into a little bit more, and I'll admit, that I had flaws in some of the stuff I was doing, but the curvature, I was really surprised that the more and more people came out that said they can't find any evidence of it. And that was the other question I put out to people. It's like, show me where the curvature is. Show me how you know. How does the average person on the street see it? And, they all started, oh, I was out on the beach and I saw it. Really? Take a picture of it. Tell me, put a straight edge up to it. Tell me that you see the curvature. Well, I saw it from an airplane. Really do the same thing. Send it to me. And, no one's ever done it to the point where we have weather balloons now. That are either taken with really, warped fisheye GoPro lenses, or they're taken with standard lenses. And the standard lenses always show a flat surface. Now, in hindsight, we've looked at some 3D models lately, which show that even at an altitude of a weather balloon, you shouldn't be able to ever get up high enough to actually see the curve. So does a high-altitude weather balloon prove flat Earth? No, but it does prove that NASA, with their severe curves, aren't showing us what the truth is. Okay, and then what about NASA? What is your feeling? That's another question I get time and time again. Well, we went to the moon. What about that? What about the pictures? So let's talk about NASA and where what are your feelings about them? Yeah, you got to give up. Everybody's got to give up NASA. They were a fabrication since day one. And I know it's easy for me to say. People are going, what are you saying? They lied about everything? I was going, no. The only reason they were created was to hide this world. In 1958, the moon mission... they went. There's too many questions on the NASA side that have never ever been answered. One was, what sort of shielding did they use when they went 10 missions from Apollo 8 through Apollo 17 through the Van Allen radiation belts? Came back, nobody died, nobody got cancer, and the capsules weren't contaminated. What shielding did they use? They've never really addressed it. There's never been an exterior shot of an astronaut holding a camera that even turns 180 degrees, let alone 360. That should have happened by accident. There are, and of course, the big one, which finally got some attention this year, and we're going to take the movement's going to take credit for that, and that is why from 1972 until July of 2015. Why was there only one picture in any textbook of the Earth, the full Earth from space? How is that even possible? We sent out probes, we sent out shuttles, we sent out all sorts of fun stuff, and nobody's ever taken a picture. And why did you wait for Apollo 17? Apollo 17 was the last mission. Why not take it from Apollo 8, Apollo 9? It's not like they were landing. They had plenty of time on their hands. Nobody took a shot, and they only had one shot. And then NASA confirmed that and the White House retweeted it this year, where they said, oh, yeah, by the way, here's our second shot. We've taken it in 43 years. And it was amazing that it's almost like they want to get caught. So, yeah, NASA is an utter joke. It's a con since day one, and I know some people say, well, fine, I don't believe the moon, but I believe in the International Space Station. And I go, really? Take a look at some of the interior footage of that on YouTube and tell me what that is. Even to the point of satellites. All satellites are routed through a branch of NASA in one form or another. So it's there's nothing real about anything that's going on up there when it comes to the United States government or any space program, what they're talking about, what they're doing.
Mark, you said it's almost like they want to get caught. Do you think that maybe this whole thing, it was on purpose, a purposeful push towards this flat Earth model for some other reason that maybe we don't know about?
It sure feels like it. I've looked at it for a long enough time now that the mistakes they're making, because you got to remember, they've got to be able to make the mistakes for the lowest common denominator. And the mistakes they've been making over the last, a year or two have been really, really bad from a production standpoint, to the point of really being blatant. Everything from the interior of the ISS to how bad the Apollo footage was aged over the years, to even the rockets and what we've been or that sloppy thing where the Challenger astronauts are apparently still alive, which of course they didn't count on the internet tracking these people down, but yeah.
Out of all the clues videos that you did, what do you think is the most important one?
The most important one for me, because it was the one that kept me going through it, was Clue 2, which was the Byrd Wall, because that raised the suspicions of anyone that watched it. It was really, really tough to deny what you were looking at, and that is, it doesn't matter your gender, your race, any of your demographics. Anyone that watches that understands, and what they understand is when the best explorer in the world and America's finest military officer comes out and says the place is made out of money, we're gonna carve this thing up, and then they turn around and seal it off for all time. Don't let anyone down there, and it's unilaterally accepted all around the world. It's you can't deny that, because we all know how money works. We've all seen it too many times, since we were young. Money rules everything, and this is one place that money can't get into. You can't tell me that there isn't a petroleum, an oil and gas company out there with unlimited financial resources that can't get in there. And not only can they not get in, but they're not even allowed to talk about it. They're not even allowed to petition it. You'd think they'd go to the New York Times 30 years ago and say, start running stories, why ExxonMobil should be in Antarctica, crap like that. They're not even allowed to do that. So, very suspicious.
And when he was on that program, and then if I understood you right, he went for another mission, and then we never heard from him again, and then he mysteriously was dead probably within a year. Is that right?
Yeah. He deep freeze ended in 56, and then he died quietly in 57. Now, granted, he was in his 60s, but he was a very fit. He was a lifelong explorer. That guy was. He was like the Energizer Bunny. He wasn't going to slow down. So I think, I'd like to think the glass is half full on this one, but, it's not always the case. I think he was told that, you really can't talk about this, and when he kind of hedged, because, he did interviews all around the world, that they said, we just can't take a chance with him screwing up this. Right. And so they just took care of it.
Okay, Mark, we're going to go ahead and take our second break, listeners. Today my guest is Mark Sargent, the host of the Strange World radio program and producer of Flat Earth Clues. We'll be back momentarily on the Truth Seekers radio show.
If you're struggling to pay or haven't been making your student loan payments, listen carefully to this urgent alert. Have you been out of school for 10 or more years and you're still making your student loan payments? Are your student loans past due or even in default? Can't go back to school because of an old student loan problem? We can help you if you qualify. Your student loans can be taken out of default. We can stop the wage garnishments, stop the collection calls, and stop the seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and see if we can help you reduce your student loan payments. One quick 10-minute call could solve them right now. So call the Student Loan Helpline now. 855-371-FAST. 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 855-371-3278. This is a fee-based document preparation service to help you access free government programs. Call for complete details. Not available in all states. Want to lose weight? Then turn your body into a furnace that literally melts the fat away. That's exactly what Thermometer does. Thermometer is uniquely formulated with patented ingredients like bitter orange, brown seaweed, and decaffeinated green tea. Their combined thermogenic properties boost up your metabolism and turn up the heat in your body so you melt the fat away without any jittery side effects. Thermometer is not available in stores. It's only available to listeners of this station. We're giving away 100 free bottles right now to anyone who enrolls in our special trial offer. Call now for your risk-free trial offer. 800-430-4147. 800-430-4147. 800-430-4147. One more time, 800-430-4147.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Truth Seekers radio show. Today my guest is Mark Sargent. He's the host of Strange World and the producer of YouTube videos called Flat Earth Clues, and we're discussing the Flat Earth Theory. Mark, before we go any further, did you want to give out a web address or anything where people could find out more about you and your work?
Oh, yeah, it's real easy. Either go to enclosedworld.com or just take any search engine and type in Flat Earth Clues. You will find it.
Now, we're so brainwashed so that when you mention this flat model versus the globe model, people just can't wrap their head around it. So when you try to explain to someone how is Antarctica different on the globe model versus the flat?
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. The map isn't like anything you've seen otherwise, although people have seen it, they just never recognized it before, which is the UN flag. So if you take a look at the UN flag, basically what you're doing is you're taking the globe, you're putting your hand on the North Pole, and you're flattening it out to where all the continents, so the North Pole's in the center of the map like a dinner plate, and all the continents kind of spread out organically. However, there's one continent which is very, very different, and that is Antarctica. So mainstream science says that Antarctica is this big kind of island continent similar to the size of Australia. But in the flat model, it is literally stretched out around the entire outer edge, and that's what we believe.
Now, the other argument I get, especially because then they say, well, do you think we went to the moon? Mm-hmm. And I have my own opinion on that. I don't think we went. Yeah. But they say, well, then wouldn't all of NASA's employees have to be in on all this stuff? What would you say? The astronauts, the employees? Would everybody have to be in on it?
No, it's not like the Manhattan Project where you're trying to cover up atomic weapons. In this sort of scenario, especially with NASA, all you have to do is have, of course, the people at the top do, and the Apollo astronauts knew, but basically it's just telemetry. So the people that fake the telemetry data that's coming into the control room, yeah. But everyone in the control room, all the nuts and bolts guys, the people that are turning wrenches, they don't know any different. For them, it's just business as usual. But the Apollo astronauts were told, and that was, we learned through our mistakes, and that's what was one of their mistakes, was they told them that they had to fake it, and they also told them why. And that weighed really, really heavily on them. Over the years, most of the people know the Apollo astronauts, most of them turned into recluses when they should have been, living the high life and living a hero's life for years and years up until they died. opposed to all the astronauts that you see now, which are basically just Air Force employees, and they seem pretty happy running around the ISS in their khakis and their polo shirts and their socks. And that's because all they do in that case is they just make them sign non-disclosure agreements saying, "Oh yeah, by the way, you're going to be faking this, but not only you're not allowed to tell anybody, you're not even allowed to ask us why. It is above your pay grade. That way, your conscience is clear. The less you know is better."
So when they initially enter into these contracts, I wonder if they even know to the depths that all of that footage will eventually be used. What do you think?
They probably don't. I mean, really, is it any different than, because remember, they're military guys. Is it any different than a spy, being hired by whatever organization? They signed on for it, and they knew that's like, oh yeah, you might be shoulder tapped to do some black bag operations. In this case, you're being shoulder tapped to do some movie footage or television footage, and they don't know, and I don't think they actually. Well, I mean, I'm sure they whisper about it to each other, but I don't think a lot of them even know at the highest astronaut levels now.
What do you say when people ask you about gravity?
Gravity is, for lack of a better term, just a word. Even mainstream science has a really hard time with gravity. Now, they say that, well, if there's a ball that's just sitting in space, that gravity is the mass of the planet itself, and that's what keeps everybody on it because we're attracted to the surface. But it also works pretty well in a flat world, believe it or not, because there's not much difference there. If we're talking about mass or we're talking about an artificial means, because if there's divine intervention here, who's to say it's not? Gravity isn't some sort of molecular magnet that has settings and all sorts of different adjustments you could do, which is why which is something you would want, because otherwise you have to rely on stuff like saying that the moon controls the tides, and that the sky doesn't go rushing through the air at 1,000 miles an hour. There's a lot of really weird inconsistencies there.
And what about the planets and the solar system? Do you think that exists?
They do, but they're way, way closer. And that's the big one. That's the one that blows people's minds usually. And that is, in this model, the sun and the moon, the sun isn't 93 million miles away, and the moon isn't 237,000 miles away. They're much, much closer, maybe in only a few thousand miles out, and maybe only, 30 plus miles wide. Those two appear to be physical objects, define which one is physical. But as far as the planets and the stars, no, they're part of a giant planetarium system. So when you're looking the inside of a planetarium and then you go outside at night and you look at the real stars, tell me, what the difference is between the two. And that's what we believe.
So would that be a good comparison to make when you're trying to explain the flat Earth model to someone? Just imagine when you go to the planetarium.
Yeah, it's very similar to that. Of course, there's some geologic processes. I mean, we can build a planetarium that's, if we wanted to, we could build it that is miles wide. But we're talking about one that's thousands of miles wide. So if you could build that was also one of the questions I put out there. If you could build a planetarium / terrarium / wildlife preserve that was thousands of miles wide, could you hide an entire civilization inside it without them knowing? And how long could you do it? And the answer appears to be about 5,000 years.
Well, if you think about everything that we think we know, it's really, whether it's we've heard it from our parents when we're little, then school, TV, radio, magazines, whatever type of medium we hear it. In blind faith, we've all believed what we've been told because none of us have ever done the real research. We've never gone out and really seen these things, so we're all taking it on blind faith when you really drill down and look at what we believe, whether it's this theory or anything.
Oh yeah. We equate, I wasn't kidding when I said this in the clues, it's like we know that fire burns, water is wet, you drop a pen, that appears to be something called gravity. But when it comes to the planet and the shape, we equate it with, well, it's a given, obviously. It's obviously a planet. Well, really? How do you know it's a planet? Just because, nobody found it out for themselves. They were all told this. And that's where, again, things start to crumble, because, like, okay, how would you prove to somebody that you're on a planet right now? Can you do it without using the word NASA? Because if you keep circling back to NASA, you're putting an awful lot of faith in a military wing of the U.S. government that was built on the red-hot embers of the Nazi war machine. And I'll even throw one more in there, and you probably heard this one, and that is Wernher von Braun, the father of rocket science. Met with every leader and president, and his headstone is very, very modest. And on his headstone, other than the day he was born, the year he was born and died, has a single Bible verse, which is Psalms 19:1, which says, "And the firmament shows his handiwork." Why would a rocket scientist put this on their headstone? Why would he start talking about an impenetrable dome above us from the grave? It's fascinating.
Something else I wanted to bring up was the International Space Station, because I get that a lot. It's like, well, then why did they create that? What are they really doing up there? What do you think about that? And what are some of the anomalies you found when looking into the ISS?
Yeah, the ISS was something I didn't look into initially. The YouTube thing just started branching out and growing like a weed when it came to this. And there was a video out there called ISS Hoax. And very, very interesting, where you're looking at, you see astronauts floating around in these little things, wearing their polo shirts and their khakis and their socks. Why they don't wear shoes, I have no idea. And then what you notice first off is little things like, why are the women's hair permed using some sort of heavy hairspray? Why would you? It sticks up unnaturally. It doesn't flow. They look like the Bride of Frankenstein, and it doesn't make sense, because you would be doing things like if you wanted to do it, if you wanted to do better production techniques, you would do something like, I don't know, put a hat on them, or tie their hair back, or both, or I don't know, cut their hair. In swimming pools, the same thing applies. It's why you're not allowed really to have long hair in swimming pools, because people are going to swim into it, and then it's like spider webs. Why are there no hatches between the compartments that we can see, or are they easily accessible to? Where are the freaking doors? Why are all the sections only about as wide as a jet airplane? Why is there a jet airplane background noise whenever you're going from section to section? It just goes on and on. It's really bad, again, which is why I think they're trying to get caught, because even your rookie Hollywood producer isn't going to make the mistakes that they did.
So what is their end game then if they want to get caught? And why would they do that?
Well, if you wanted to get caught, in this case, and lots of people would agree, I think, which is, if you wanted to finally set up some sort of new world order, what better way than to first tell everybody that they're in one big village, one big community? That goes a long way as far as producing harmony between people. And so that seems like, it seems like Flat Earth is being set up for something bigger on top of it. Some have suggested, a fake Planet X, using blue beam, or maybe a fake alien invasion, or maybe even a real alien invasion. It's something along those lines. But that's what it feels like right now. It feels too much like a setup. If people have been doing this long enough, people that have been with me doing it since February, they're all in the same boat. They're going, there's something. They're getting before this interview, there's an article out to the International Space Station. They're going to close it. It just came out today.
That's interesting.
Where they're gonna put all the people on the moon. It's like, oh, really? You're gonna do a moon base now? 2015? You're gonna do a moon base? Why? Because you can't do the ISS anymore? Yeah. Let me know how you're gonna fake stuff on a moon base. That's gonna be way, way worse. No different than the Mars mission. The Orion Mars mission, where they kept talking about it, and then all of a sudden, just a couple days ago, they canceled it. They said, there was this little science instrument we couldn't get in time from the French, and so we're just going to postpone it indefinitely. What are you talking about?
I noticed how they pushed Mars this whole year.
Yeah.
And those pictures are laughable. But you said earlier in the program that you thought NASA was created for the moon landing, or the fake moon landing.
Yes.
But I think then maybe what happened is they saw what a big money-making machine it was. I mean, if you tell the American public that, we're going on all these big missions, somebody has to fund that stuff. Now, if we're not going, that money's going somewhere. What's your thought on that?
They made a lot of money off of this, no question. Unfortunately, the reason why NASA was formed was two parts. One was you had to militarize the sky, meaning you had to make sure the private sector, like Hughes Aircraft or McDonnell Douglas or Boeing or General Dynamics, you can't let those guys get into the private space program, it's such a, back in the 60s and 70s, because you don't even know how the heck you're trying to control this. But the other thing they did, which they really had to, and I'm giving credit to Matt Boylan on this one, which was they didn't have a picture of the Earth from space. Didn't have a single picture, because you can't just hand the picture to people and say, oh yeah, by the way, this is the Earth from space, because people are going to say, well, how'd you take it? So you actually had to create a fake rocket program that would simulate going that far, so then you could hand people the picture and say, oh yeah, this is the Earth from space, because then you defined it. I mean, that one image convinced people for the because if you waited too much longer, it would have gotten pretty dicey. People would have wanted a picture. It's like, why don't we have a picture? Where's the picture? And
right.
But they kept using that same photo for so long, 2 generations, and now it's just where that record is played out.
Okay, Mark, let's take our last break, listeners. Today my guest is Mark Sargent, host of Strange World and producer of Flat Earth Clues, and we'll be back momentarily on the Truth Seekers radio show.
Want to lose weight? Then turn your body into a furnace that literally melts the fat away. That's exactly what Thermometer does. Thermometer is uniquely formulated with patented ingredients like bitter orange, brown seaweed, and decaffeinated green tea. Their combined thermogenic properties boost up your metabolism and turn up the heat in your body so you melt the fat away without any jittery side effects. Thermometer is not available in stores. It's only available to listeners of this station. We're giving away 100 free bottles right now to anyone who enrolls in our special trial offer. Call now for your risk-free trial offer. 800-430-4147. 800-430-4147. 800-430-4147. One more time, 800-430-4147.
This alert just came in. This special announcement is for business owners and leaders of organizations who've been waiting for the right time to build. General Steel has made it impossible to wait any longer with rock-bottom prices that could save you thousands. That's right, General Steel, America's leader in pre-engineered structures, is offering buildings at prices you will never see again. Don't miss these prices. A 50 by 100 for $35,000. You heard right. That's 5,000 square feet for $35,000. Manufacturers, if you need a larger building, try a 100 by 100 commercial building for $129,000. You can't afford to rent with these prices. Imagine a 70 by 100 foot church building for under $69,000. With the economy improving and interest rates still at historic lows, you can't afford to wait. So call
800-965-1291. 800-965-1291. 800-965-1291.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Truth Seekers radio show. Today I'm speaking with Mark Sargent. He's the host of Strange World and also the producer of Flat Earth Clues, and we're talking about a conspiracy that gained a lot of attention this year called Flat Earth Theory. Mark, before we went to the break, you had mentioned Matt Boylan. You know who he is and I know who he is, but for someone that never heard of Matt, can you talk a little bit about Matt?
Sure. He is a very interesting guy. He was talking about Flat Earth years ago. Again, when he was 25, and he's 38 now, he was working for NASA and painting pictures. And he goes to a high-level party out in the Hamptons, and there was a power outage, and so it's down to candlelight and wine, which usually means confession time, and people are talking about this and that, and somebody mentions, well, I've heard that GPS doesn't work down in Antarctica, and Matt's playing along, and one of the guys says, well, you should send a team out there to make sure, to find out. And one of the guys says, well, if you send them out that far, they're not coming back. And, Matt goes, why aren't they coming back? He goes, well, because it's flat. And because GPS doesn't work down there, because, there's nothing to bounce a signal off of. And even he didn't get that for years. He didn't understand what he was looking at for the longest time. But yeah, he was talking about this years ago, and he was really kind of an island when this thing kind of came out. But unfortunately it's been rattling around his head for so long. It's tough for him to keep focus anymore. So we reference him whenever we can, but that's about it.
Can you talk a little bit more in depth about the flights in the southern hemisphere that you were mentioning flights earlier, that kind of is what set you off in this direction? But what I've often wondered, if the Earth is spinning, let's take a flight, say, from just New York to Vegas. How come it's always the same amount of time whether you're going east to west or west to east? It seems
Exactly.
like when you're going in one direction, you should pick up speed, and then when you're going the other direction, it should take longer.
Yeah. What you're talking about there is a variation of the Coriolis effect, which basically says that anything flying through the air will have to adjust to the Earth's spinning. And I have talked to a lot of people over the year, over the last months. Flight instructor, Navy guys that are firing missiles, sub guys that are firing torpedoes, and they're all basically saying the same thing, and that is we've all heard of the Coriolis effect, but we can't ever actually see it in real life. And so what you're saying there is very true. If you're flying from east to west and west to east, isn't a plane sort of like a bullet in some ways? I mean, yeah, it's a little slower, but why don't they ever have to adjust for the runways and the spin of the Earth? And you'd think that, with all these different runways all over the world, you get into some weird situations where the plane can be coming in sideways. And it just isn't there. The Coriolis effect, show it to me. I've got, 8 or 10 people now that all say that in all different professional sectors that say the same thing, which is the Coriolis effect, the spinning of the Earth, is not there.
Nate, you've had some very interesting guests. You talked about Sean, the Navy missile instructor. What other guests have you had?
The submarine electronics chief, the career surveyor of 32 years, who said that, even by accident, people should be, surveyors, especially using big tracts of land, should be taking into account the curvature. Industrial engineer that specializes in valves and seals, that says the ISS is absolutely impossible the way they advertise it. Artillery, United States Army, field artillery radar operator that's shooting beam radars out at distances. I mean, Sean McCurry, of course, is shooting beam radars at a minimum of 60 miles. And if the curvature of the Earth is real, he should not be able to paint a target with that thing. And he's not bouncing off the ionosphere. But yeah, lots of different people that have, and of course the flight instructor, he was great, where he comes out and says, look, the reason why because a lot of people say, well, wouldn't all the pilots know? It's like, no, they wouldn't know, because they're not looking for it. They're just flying their planes and getting from point A to point B, and if they get there, why would you question that? Mm-hmm. And now he gets it. Now he sees what's going on, and the instruments, all the instruments he uses point to the same thing, which is there is no curvature, there is no Coriolis effect, and the maps are wrong.
Well, Mark, we're almost out of time. What closing thoughts do you have to somebody that might, when they're first looking into this, or if there's somebody that they would like to talk to somebody about this, how do you go about that?
Take your time. That's the big thing. Have patience. Not just with other people, if you ever bring it up to them, but yourself. Because, again, you're going to brace against it. I wasn't kidding when I said that I was physically embarrassed the first time I ever clicked on a flat Earth link. And that didn't make any sense to me. I'd clicked on all sorts of fun links over the years with conspiracies. So just take your time and make your decision afterwards. Don't immediately jump on that bandwagon, well, this is stupid. Because you got to ask yourself why you think it's just stupid. Saying it's stupid isn't a rebuttal. It's just a knee-jerk reaction. Again, it's the only conspiracy out there we debunk to children, and it's worked very well over the years.
Mm-hmm. Listeners, today my guest has been Mark Sargent, host of Strange World, producer of Flat Earth Clues. We've been talking about the Flat Earth theory, and until next week, God bless.
promise to wear your life jacket.
This message brought to you by the National Safe Boating Council and the women who nag you. love you.